Hello, my name is Marco Guerrero, and today I'll be presenting to you Readings in Sexuality and Literature, Whiteness. So what exactly is whiteness? Whiteness, as defined in the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, is the quality of white or very light in color. Whiteness, however, when it comes to topics like race, is a construct created by critical race studies and is akin to a measuring stick. Whiteness, when it comes to the topic of race, can be seen as a standard of measurement, where white people and their customs, cultures, beliefs, etc. are seen as the standard where all other groups are compared to. In this context, white is seen as the quote-unquote normal because the standard for a long time in America to be normal was to be seen as white, and even to today to an extent. Try to imagine the typical American. Nowadays, you can imagine people of different ethnicities, but in the 1900s, it was more often than not of a white guy. Because of the standard, being closer to white can be seen as being closer to normal, thus helping to give rise to colorism amongst minorities. The effect whiteness has on modern-day American society can be very detrimental to certain minorities. For example, preference could be shown for lighter-skinned minorities over darker-skinned minorities, like a preference for Asian Americans over African Americans for, say, a job interview. This is partially why whiteness goes hand in hand with colorism more often than not. Another example could be the misjudging and looking down upon another culture's beliefs and values when in comparison to white people's beliefs and values. One of the myriad ways whiteness affects us to this day concerns representation of minorities on screen, and how generally the lighter-skinned members will be cast more often than their darker-skinned counterparts, and in more prominent roles, even if they are of the same ethnicity. An example is how many of the best African American actresses in the US have lighter skin when compared to their colleagues. Even though colorism plays a part in this, whiteness also plays a part in this, as the actresses have lighter skin and are seen as more desirable than the darker-skinned actresses. Some examples of these actresses are Halle Berry and Zendaya. Whiteness has also contributed to an increase in colorism amongst minorities and within white communities themselves. Colorism is defined by Oxford Languages as prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. Now, I know some of you may be asking, what exactly is the difference between whiteness and colorism? They have many similarities, but also have some differences. Colorism, as described earlier, is prejudice and discrimination based against individuals with a darker skin tone. Whiteness, however, is more broad and, as described, is the measuring stick for America, as other groups and their cultures, beliefs, etc. are compared to white people's. They are very similar and overlap, but are not identical. Because white or lighter skin was preferred over darker skin, this had a profound effect on American slaves, the effects of which can be felt to this day. This included darker-skinned slaves being forced to work in the fields, while lighter-skinned slaves were supposed to work indoors and be servants and/or butlers. Because of this created modern-day stereotypes amongst darker-skinned and lighter-skinned African Americans, and has also created divisions within the African American community when it comes to the treatment of one compared to another by society. As whiteness is tied with white racial identity, it has invariably changed alongside it. This is because originally what was considered white is far different today than what it was in the past. For example, in the past, it was a contentious issue whether Jews counted as white, but nowadays it is an accepted fact that they are. Another example is how in the past, whiteness was predominantly thought of as Anglo-Saxon. Anglo-Saxon relating to or denoting the Germanic inhabitants of England from their arrival in the 5th century up to the Norman conquest. This discounted southeastern Europeans and those close to the Middle East. But as times changed, so did the definition of whiteness. When it comes to ending whiteness, one must remember that it is like race, a construct, one that can be torn down by remembering, despite our skin color, or different cultures and values amongst the groups within America, we are all equals to one another, that it is normal to be white and not white, to have different values and beliefs from one another, and still be equal.